Hey, it's Nasty Mirasty and watching Nasty Knuckles.
You're listening to Nasty Knuckles, the Hockey Outlaws podcast, with your hosts, Derek Nasty Sotomayor and former Philadelphia Flyer enforcer Riley Cote, as they go behind the scenes with your favorite NHL players. Time to face off.
All right, welcome back. What's happening, Nasty?
What's up, Rigarelia?
Like the sweatshirt there.
Oh, this whole thing?
Short sleeve sweatshirt.
Oh, well, I made it a short sleeve sweatshirt.
Looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had some guns to go along with it.
Yeah,
but,
you got the Popeye forearms.
y'all, don't I? Jeez.
Jacking those things
Just snapping wristers all the time, you know. Like, had a goal Sunday night.
How'd that go
It
down?
was a muffin.
Was it?
I'm not even sending baller to the clip. It was,
Well, he already pulled it
well,
off.
Pink, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Our buddy Eric Pinko, he was in the way of the goalie, and he, tried to, deflect it, and the goalie probably thought he was gonna, so it went in. And it wasn't a snipe. I actually was kind of passing it to him to deflect it, but I'll take it.
Hey.
I'll take it. We won again. It was a good game. You weren't there, of course, so that's why I'm going over it, because you bailed again on us.
Game review?
Game review. No, we don't need to get into all that, but it was a good game, close game, 6-5, I think. So
Fully recovered?
I felt great. Actually,
Yeah.
we were short this week, so it would have been nice for you to come, because it was tough playing with short of forward.
He didn't send me that chopper. Picked me up, dropped me off with the old Hollydale.
It's actually embarrassing. That's what we basically have to do now: send a car for Riley to play in his men's league games.
Preferably a chopper. Cut that travel time in half.
Listen, I'm not getting you a chopper at this point. You're not far enough. It's okay to take an Escalade to the rink, or
You're
a
right.
limo, whatever.
You're right.
Problem is, if you got to bring the girls and you put them in a limo, the guy's going to drop you guys off because they're going to be wild.
Oh, yeah. It'll be
You'll
a
give him some
disaster.
shug night when
Can't
I
have that.
see him. I know.
Can't have that.
I know. No, but we had a good weekend. It was fun.
Good.
Elvis's team had a tough weekend. We dropped all three.
Oof.
Not ideal. We were in Lehigh. We went to Lehigh to play.
Steel Ice Center?
Yes, and our buddy Mike from AC is working there now doing the ice. I know you remember Mike.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, man, I was so excited. I heard somebody going, "Is Nasty here?" Because somebody had a Settlemire skate sharpening. I think
cool.
Dave Merrill had one on, and a couple of guys had a hat, Nasty Knuckle hats on. And I hear him, look over, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" He was like, "I texted you." I said, "Yeah, I texted you back." He goes, "Yeah, but didn't I text you again?" I said, "Well, I missed that." Anyway, it's good seeing him. The ice was obviously in great condition there.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's the man.
On top of that.
So we had a tough weekend that way, but bounced back this weekend. PHC 2014, boys will be ready to go. What about you? How was your weekend?
Pretty strong. A little mini birthday, kind of post birthday party for Kinsley.
Yeah, okay.
Bunch of kids over.
Can't believe
jumping on
she's
the
14.
trampoline. 14, yeah. She's 9.
But it's going to
Almost
come
creeping on
quicker
10.
than you can imagine.
Yeah, so a little fun there, but nothing.
Did they get some cake at least? Birthday
had a little
cake?
cake.
You let them have some cake?
They're still dealing with the aftermath
You're
of
so
the
fucked.
sugar hangover. Cause
It's good
they're
for them.
buzzing.
A little bit of Suge Knight doesn't hurt them.
it does jack up the nervous system. I mean,
Just a little
it
bit.
definitely affects their sleep.
Baller, we were having
We're
a
in
party one
denial.
time. I know I've told you this before, but we're out back, and the girls just buried a couple cupcakes, and he comes flying out. He's walking on water. He's trying to get to him so fast. He's literally running across the pool. No, that's
Well, it's
enough.
easy. It's easy for you guys to just give them all the sugar.
Hey, and then you
gotta
gotta-
be the nice,
Well, they were going to be here for 2 or 3 more hours, so they got to.
yeah, well.
They worked it off.
Oh yeah, but there's still the shelf life. You know,
The
2 or 3 hours
shelf
on the back end of that. I got to deal with the ride home and
It's because you never give them just a little. If you just give it, balance it out,
Yeah,
man.
a steady, consistent dose of sugar.
Just a consistent dose for kids. You gotta have it just a little bit. No, I know. Actually, I'm kidding around, but Elvis doesn't eat a lot of sweets like that.
No?
He actually it's weird. I almost find it weird that he won't eat a donut, like just a normal
He's
donut.
that committed. He's that focused.
He's that focused.
You know, Terry Murray used to say,
Yeah, and you know
guys
what, Brad?
showing up the rink with donuts, you made the decision not to compete.
Yeah, I've never eaten a donut. And as soon as he said that, B-Rad, Brad Smith, our good friend, he was a masseuse with us for a long time, literally picked up a donut and one-timed it right in front of Murph.
Wow.
Right in front of him.
What did Murph say?
Brad walked away. Don't forget my black shoes
Oh, yeah, right.
for the game.
Extra thick soles.
Yeah, extra thick soles. Comfy. He had 2 pair of those babies. He had 2
backups.
pair. Can't lose those,
Oh, no,
man.
you can't.
But I'll give
Throw
him
your game
credit.
off.
Every game he came and put them in the skate trunk.
Yeah,
So
you-
it was never on anyone else because he put them in there. If they weren't there when you got there the next day, it was my screw up.
Oh, yeah.
So
Murph was prepared.
Murph was prepared. He was. I remember the one time Johnny said, let me ask Nasty and the trainers what'll work best for tomorrow. And he goes, fuck the trainers. Just do this. I'm like, come on, Murph. Like, really?
That's it?
I thought he was like kidding, but I don't think
No,
he
he
was.
wasn't.
He was not kidding.
F the
He's
trainers.
like, don't worry about what they have to do. But no, he's a good man.
Yeah, he is, for sure.
So that was it? Just the party?
That's pretty much it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Well, the Flyers had their first 2 preseason games. Mm-hmm. Went into Washington. Both were on the road. Washington, they won the game 6-2. It's preseason. I was saying to Paul earlier, the one good thing, like in preseason, most people know it's like you're obviously not getting a full lineup. You have to have a certain, I don't remember what the number is for a certain amount of players that have to dress to play to, like
Right,
in the
certain amount of
NHL,
NHL
right?
games.
And the one thing I took as a positive out of the Capitals game was just the fact that those guys that you had in there, Joel Farabee, Frosty, Brink, Matvey had a couple assists, Lachenko had a couple assists, Beezer had a day, Philly Joel had a day, he had a G and 3 helpers. But, and I know it's, like I said, I'm not getting too fired up about it, but those are the guys that should get the points in games like that.
Yep.
So I think that's important to look at. The second game they got popped pretty good 5-0 in Montreal, but again, it's preseason.
That's it.
So but it's nice that hockey's on, and
that's it.
I've been up all night watching the late games and everything. It's just fun that we're right here, right around the corner.
Oh, yeah. No, it's exciting times. And I mean, I don't put a whole lot of stock into these games. Like, you could watch them with a kind of an open mind, right? Because, like you said, both teams aren't playing their full lineup, and there's so many different variables in these games. But hockey's back. Even like we watched a clip with the Maple Leafs with Chief.
Yeah.
And they're grilling. They're 0-2 in preseason. And, it's like,
what did she
is it
ask him?
panic?
Are you
panicking?
is there any panic? Chiefs. He almost, he wanted to go. Boys, he wanted to, and he was like, "No panic."
Yeah, right.
Preseason, Baller probably has that clip.
A lot of people are always going to look at 2 losses for this team. Is it time to panic? But for you, right? It's fans, I think, get a little bit uptight. Exactly.
Preseason, so
Is this for you more?
But it's pretty funny, yeah. But that's probably T.O. and what he's going to deal
oh, yeah.
with.
Well, that's going to be dealing with every single day.
I mean,
every single move will be scrutinized. And
yeah.
I think I think he probably wanted to be smart. And I think he kind of played it cool because he want to be, public enemy number 1, 2 preseason games in.
The way it looks, people are pretty happy they got him in there, and they should be. If you don't know him, which in Toronto they know who Craig Berube is and what he's done, but that's a guy that you probably can't find a player that's played for him or staff members that work for him. As we pump his tires all the time, but he was one of the best guys to work for on my side of things. And I feel like as a player, probably for you guys too, because he's just telling you how it is.
Yeah.
Like he always did that with guys, and sometimes they don't like it, but at the end of the day, you probably go home and think, like, you know what? I know there was a story I think we told about Dave Perron. They went at it because he was going to scratch him, and a few days later he came in and David ended up going on a 9-point game streak, like 9 games of points, and he said, "You were right, and I was wrong."
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. So anyway, in Toronto, it's gonna be every day. You're gonna win one, lose one. I mean, remember we had Hartsey on when I D's nuts, Hartsey.
Yeah.
Don't forget that, buddy. It was when they had started the season a little slow. But he'll get used to it.
Oh, yeah.
If he's not already.
I'm sure he's mentally prepared and probably has some coaching, alongside.
Yeah.
I mean, like media coaching, that is, right? I mean, it's like, obviously he's had enough experience with the media. He knows how it works.
Yeah.
And he knows if he says, one thing the wrong way, it's going to get blown up and scrutinized even more. But Chief's always been mindful of that. And, speaks it how it is, but he also knows when to hold it tight to his chest and
for sure.
pump the brakes a little bit. So looking forward to some of those media interactions.
Yeah, I am too. I wish he'd do a little Daryl, because he had Daryl as a coach. I used to just love watching Daryl. But I was going to say, John Tortorella invited out our friend Guy Gaudreau this past week.
Classy
and
move.
Just classy move. And like we've talked a lot about Torts, and I've told my stories about what kind of a person he is. Take away the hockey. I know this is dealing with hockey, but if you watch his press conference when they asked about it, I mean, he's this will probably help heal a little bit. Nothing's probably ever going to heal you from such a just awful thing, but
get your mind off it
temporarily.
And
the guys look like Guy looked like he was into it, and it was funny. Torts said at one point that Guy looked at him and says, "How are you on?" Like, I guess Torts was on them like, "God, go, we gotta go." He's like, "You only got 3 lines out here. How you expect him to keep going?" Like there wasn't. Torts was like, "He's a coach, he gets it."
Yeah.
But I just thought it was great that he was out there and just a classy move, like you said. And Torts made it. He said to the media, like, "This isn't just a one-time thing. We'll try to get him out here. Keep him involved." And that's huge for Guy. It really is.
Yeah.
So I was Torts. Fuck, thumbs up, man. And Flyers, Danny, everyone. I'm sure they all had a say in it, but it was great.
Yeah, agreed. And as Torts mentioned in the press conference, that Guy's a coach. I mean, he coached and raised, arguably one of the best players in the NHL. And so he knows the game. He knows what it takes. He's knowledgeable, and at the very least, right now, it's just about getting his mind off it and being around a team again. And so I thought it was just a classy move overall. Some good clips there that I saw on social media. And hopefully it helps. I'd like to think that it does, right?
I hope it does.
So another classy move there.
Yeah, it was great. Our buddy Tony DeAngelo put a nice post out. I don't think he posts too much, but he's going over to Russia. Mm-hmm. I'm still take everything away, but I'm just talking about the hockey player. You're telling me not one team in this league take a guy like that, right-handed shot, power play guy. I can't understand it.
Yeah. I'd be curious on what he was actually asking for in the NHL here. I mean, because it couldn't be that much.
He was
just to
there were
here.
A couple teams. I spoke to him quite a bit because he was practicing with the Rebels, and I was seeing him at the rink a lot. And the kid just loved him. Last day, he bought everyone lunch. Like, Tony, he's just such a good guy. We joke around his wires get crossed when he's playing, but it's not always a bad thing either, as far as I'm concerned. I know
having passion.
Yeah, like that's just him. But anyway, there were a couple teams where he was willing. Like, I think he's confident enough. Like, I can go here and make this team. Like, it's going to be hard for you not to have me make your team. I know there was a couple offers. I guess they just weren't guaranteeing things, and he did get quite a bit of money for Russia, and it's guaranteed.
Yeah, it's guaranteed.
I think they pay up front. That's what I heard. That's not from him, but that he would, he'd make some money. But hopefully he goes over there, everything goes well, he's back in the NHL next year, because he's too young and he's too good of a player, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Especially on your power play.
Yeah, I think as a guy gets a little older, and obviously every single year that goes by, there's fresh prospects coming up, right? Challenging guys for their positions. And I think, it comes to a point where the organization looks at a guy like Tony, obviously being honest with, him being a former first-round pick and seeing what he's been able to accomplish, power play and stuff like that. It's almost like you get to a point where you talk about maybe fifth, sixth, seventh defenseman, that maybe they're almost leaning on their prospects, or just giving that spot to someone that they've drafted or developed, right? It's almost like an interesting time in a guy's career, where your resume is good enough, but it's like, I don't say politics of the game, but it is money, and it's like there's politics around the development and getting maybe guys games in earlier, having these guys, a guy like Tony take their games away. These conversations are for real on the back end. It's not like they can't play in the NHL and you couldn't help a power play, but they're probably thinking maybe we'll just use one of our guys for that and get them the reps and get them the experience. I don't know. Obviously, he's skilled enough and he's good enough. The questions probably comes back to is his attitude good enough? Is he going to be okay in
Yeah.
times of stress and adversity? Is he going to self-destruct? I think there's probably the same conversations that have
Could
been around
be.
him forever. But
Yeah.
we love Tony, and everyone we
I know.
talk to loves Tony.
And,
He's
he'll
obviously
tell
great
you,
energy.
He'll tell you that too. Like
Yeah.
he understands. There's
He
been a
understands.
couple times where, like maybe he didn't handle things properly, but he is man enough to say that too.
Yeah.
And I love that about him.
Yeah.
But
But organizations are in the business of taking risks.
Yes,
right.
I
It's like
agree.
you're signing free agents. Like, is he going to stay healthy, and is he going to be a good teammate? And
Yeah.
and or can we replace this guy with one of our own prospects? And I think then they shake it out and But I wish him the best there. I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of assumed that he was going to go over there. There's kind of been rumblings
Right.
for a while. Wish him the best. Collect some tax-free money.
Yeah.
Enjoy himself. Play a lot of minutes and then see where it goes.
Yeah, and see where it goes, and hopefully,
so-
maybe he loves it.
Maybe he
and
does.
wants to stay there, but hopefully, if he doesn't, he wants to get back in the show. He will be next year, after having a great year.
That's it.
One other quick note, I just wanted to say, Kyle Okposo retired.
Yeah.
Had him with USA Hockey a little bit. Got to know him. Great guy. Just want to say congrats.
Great career, too.
man. Played a long time. Really good dude. Really good dude.
Yeah, it
So,
seems like it.
Best
Never met
best
him.
of luck after hockey. Whatever you do, man, I'm sure you'll be successful. Very
stuck
smart
in
guy.
or say stuck. Yeah, you'll stay in that organization, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would imagine.
He'll find a role somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like he's laid out pretty good foundation character-wise. Sounds like he's pretty respected that way.
Yeah, he definitely is. So, Riggs, I heard you've been teaching some checking clinics
I have been.
to some young kids. Are we sure that's a good idea? Are you like full on running kids?
Lining them right up.
Lining them up?
Floating, getting the timing down.
I guess it's good that you're only a $185 now. It's
Yeah,
from
right.
when you were 220
These kids
laying
are
guys
knocking me
out.
over.
But no, serious. That's pretty cool. Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, I've been doing a few of these clinics, and they're under the umbrella of the mindfulness clinics that I've been doing. So I've added the on-ice portion of the checking clinics. It sounds like not many people are teaching checking.
Right.
Not just obviously body checking. I think there's a lot more that goes into it than just the body checking piece. Obviously the angling, the timing, speed adjustments, and stick position, all that good stuff. So way beyond the body checking is a huge part of the game, right? Obviously, when you don't have the puck, you're in checking mode. So been pairing up these clinics with the mindfulness piece. So we do introduction to yoga, meditation, the rhythmic drumming. You've seen a little bit. So mindchampclinic.com. We're doing the next one in at Patriot Ice Center, October 14th, and that is 11:40 to 1:40. So
nice.
Off ice, we'll do the mindfulness. On ice, we'll do the checking, all things checking, and trying to keep my composure now.
I was going to say, I hope nobody gets you wound up. But I will say this. I'm sure you remember this. When we had Dave Poulin on, he felt like kids needed this because when they get there and the checking starts, they don't know what the hell to do or how to prepare yourself. Like you were saying, the angles preparing to take a hit, to give a hit.
Probably more on the receiving of the check than anything, right? If you're not ready, that's when guys get hurt. So yes, we teach how to deliver a check, but even way beyond the check itself, like positioning, how to angle, how to check, meaning you're trying to get the puck back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're not going to see guys like myself running around their stick up in the air trying to kill somebody, separate the man from the puck, but you don't get the puck anyways. 'Cause your stick's not in a great position, but I think there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't really see a whole lot of people teaching it, or very like spontaneously, right? It's not like a lot of emphasis on it because it's just not sexy enough, right? The skills and all this stuff is sexy, and unfortunately, I mean, what is the stat on the highest end player in the NHL? How much they have the puck on their stick? It's a very limited amount of time, and then you look at an average guy, the amount of time they actually have the puck on the stick. So the reality is you're playing away from the puck more than you are playing with the puck. So why the hell are we not teaching that and working on all those things that help you get the puck back? So
you are.
That's it.
You are teaching it.
That's what we're trying to do.
That's what we're doing. That's awesome,
Along with
man.
some mindfulness
That's
there,
cool
Nas.
to hear.
So
Yep.
appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. I think it's great. Kids seem to really enjoy it. I see all the videos and everything. I haven't been there yet, but
introducing the
I'll come in there
drums to
throwing
the hockey
elbows.
rink.
I know the drums are huge.
Got to squeeze in the next one. Love to see you there.
Well, then I'll do it.
Come on the ice too.
Where were you for hot yoga last Friday? I was there.
Yeah, I was there. You weren't there. I was
Damn
waiting
baller.
for you. I was waiting for you. That's another.
I'm coming.
That's
We're doing that
clip.
another day. You ready for this next segment?
All right, Nas, this segment is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Nasty Knuckles. Open an account today with Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code HockeyCA. Nas, you got that app open?
I've got it open. Not happy last week, but I'm coming back.
Coming back
this
strong?
Week. Yeah, you took it to me last week, but I'm going back to the Eagles again, to their game. Philadelphia Eagles versus Tampa this Sunday. But I'm taking Buccaneers plus 2.5 at home. I know I got it shoved right up my hoop last week. But I did. I'll give them credit. It was ugly. It was a terrible football game to watch, in my opinion. I know you were just sitting there with bated breath watching. No, it was awful game, and I was shocked. But I was glad the Birds won, obviously. But if they're not playing any better, I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay this weekend plus 2.5 at a -110. I don't know how the Birds are favored, to be honest.
Just rolling off it last week, I guess. The momentum, they're just piggybacking off it, and that's why I'm going with the Birds. I'm just
you're going against me again.
I'm just going to ride that win head to head. I think we should probably go head to head every week.
Well, maybe we should
make this a little more enjoyable. But I just think, regardless of the ugliness, they found a way.
They did find a way, and that's at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. But I just have a feeling Tampa is going to bring their best game, and
we'll see.
We'll see.
So I'm going Birds at a -2.5, head to head with you,
with me, and I'm going obviously with the Buccaneers at a plus 2.5.
All right.
I'll tell you what, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Oh.
I wish I could bet on how many turnovers Jalen Hurts has.
Is it not on there?
Can you not bet on that?
Is it not on there?
Couldn't find it.
Oh.
Got to talk to some people. Get it on there.
Yeah. Hey, Molly, how's that going? Sorry. She loves Jalen.
Oh, yeah.
I do too. I mean, I like the guy. I'm just kidding. I'm just busting chops. But, yeah, it's not. Look, it hasn't been pretty. That's for sure. But, like I said, Tampa Bay plus 2.5 at home.
All right. Well, we will see now.
We'll see.
All right. We're ready.
Right now?
Episode 173.
God, I can't believe
the one and only Jon Nasty Mirasty, former pro fighter and...
He's doing it all now.
Doing it all. Actor, plays gym on one of the 3 gyms.
Gym 1. He's
Shoresy.
basically gym number 1.
Gym number 1.
Gym.
All right, Nasty.
All right, let's
Here we go. Welcome back. I'm Riley Cote.
And I'm Derek Settlemeyer. And this week, Riggs, we are so pumped. It's been a long time coming, actually, to get this young man on this podcast. From Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, originally, one of the toughest men to lace him up and play pro hockey, and without a doubt, the most gamer I've ever seen. And great guy as well. He's an actor. He kind of does it all. Mm-hmm. We got to talk about this nickname of his. I'll let him have it, whoever had it first. But please welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Jon Nasty Mirasty. What's up, brother?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate it. We've literally been talking about getting you on here forever. And first thing I got to ask is, how old were you when you got the nickname Nasty? Or do you remember?
Probably around when I was about 16 years old. You know, I started playing junior and fighting, and with the last name Mirasty, it kind of came together. And I think for a while I absolutely hated it.
Really?
But, you know, and eventually it kind of wore on me, and I'm known either as Nasty or Jim.
Jim, exactly. My son knows you as Jim. He's 10 years old, and probably shouldn't let him watch over and over. But the kids these days, man, it's funny. They're we'll get into what you're doing. We'll actually ask you about it. But my son's team, they're 2014 born. They're 10-year-olds, and you hear a lot of Shoresy in that locker room.
I'm sure.
A lot of it. But yeah, why don't you tell us exactly what you got? A lot of stuff going on right now. What have you been up to?
Yeah, no, I don't know. My life's pretty fast and wild here. It's when I go through the customs at the airport, they say, "Well, what do you do for work?" And I sit there and start thinking, where should I start? Going to Tim Hortons, acting. I'm in leadership right now with Flying Dust First Nation in my home community. I do equine therapy with horses. I work with a lot of troubled youth, a lot of kids that have a rough upbringing or into the gang life. I take my horses out and I kind of get to them through horses because, kids can act really big. I can act big and tough, but around a horse, I'm nothing. So, it's a really good way to get to the kids. And then, with my history and my background of, fighting lots and being well known and, people watching and knowing who I am, I find a way that I can get to those young kids that think they're big and bad, and I find a way. I'm old school, so I connect with them and I tell them, I said, you talk smart to me, you're going to go swimming. And, I don't do it bread and butter. So it's, but yeah, I kind of everywhere, and like we were saying earlier, I'm just up coming for a campaign to run for chief of my nation again. So really looking forward to it and just keep going, and going to be playing some alumni hockey teams here in the next month or two. So that's going to be another thing I'm going to have to be busy at. So I just got to find a way to manage my time.
Wow. Yeah, you got a lot of stuff going on, and it's nice to see you doing such powerful work, good work, with your platform, obviously with your background and you being the character that you created for yourself, but to give back, and not just, give back to the youth, but to the community at large. I mean, taking on a leadership role there, powerful. So props to you, man. It's nice to see, guys that have done this role do good work in the community, because you hear a lot of dark stories that we probably land up getting into here because it's just a sad situation for some of these. But nice to see you rise above and, again, putting your name to some positivity, and you're acting. You got a nice gig there with Shoresy, and you mentioned these games coming up, but hopefully it works out that you come through Philly, because I'll be playing, and I'd love to have a run-in with you.
Right wing versus left wing.
Yeah, right. The old switcheroo.
Yeah.
Face-off specialist now. Yeah, no, it's like I said, I'm a fan of all the tough guys that go off after hockey and do good. I think it really shows a lot because, like you said, there's a lot of dark stories, and you're always classified as a goon or a savage or whatever. And some of the tough guys, the majority of tough guys I met were always men that did the most in the community, and that's something I like to do. Is I had a pretty successful life and got a lot of opportunities that came my way, and I just want to show these younger people from around here that if I can do it, you can do it. So it's really powerful work, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet. And talk about like a little bit of like that conversation, because like you started fighting at a young age, and I'm not necessarily sure, maybe we can get into psychology when you were younger. Like a lot of times you hear these stories, it's like fighting for survival, it's fighting for just a chance and this and that. And a lot of these young kids you see, like they're just looking for something to grab a hold of, an opportunity. Like maybe talk about like the psychology when you were young and how you kind of started taking on this, bigger than life, Nasty Mirasty type of role, and how you were able to ride that until almost essentially, well now, but I think you played a pro game maybe last year or the year before. So it's pretty significant career.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, people laugh at me, but growing up as a young kid, I was always one of the best players on the team, scoring the goals. And it was even funny because later down in my life, I was in a dub camp and I ran into Chad Uremko. He was a goalie of mine when we were in minor hockey, and he couldn't believe that I was the fourth line tough guy, because he remembered me as being the first line captain, centerman. And but anyway, I had two older cousins, Leon Delorme and Carlin Nordstrom, that both played in the minor pros and were pretty tough guys. Carlin actually got to play a couple of games with Ottawa, and just kind of fell into that role, I guess, because I made it to the junior ranks as a guy that can play. And then being 15 years old at my first junior camp, I had my older cousin running the camp, and he was getting ready to go back to pro, and he was the one lining up fights. And next thing you know, I'm 15 years old fighting the 20-year-old captain, and ended up giving him a licking. So it naturally went in there. But growing up, believe it or not, I was actually picked on a lot as a white-looking Indian on the reserve. So I had that reverse racism. You're just a little white boy, and my mom and dad were both teachers, so that we weren't wealthy, but we had our little toys that we had, and they'd call me a spoiled little rich kid, and we were far from it. But my parents worked hard to give us what we had, and I think when I was about 13, my dad put me into boxing, and between the times I was 13 to I was 18, I became a Golden Gloves champion, provincial champion in boxing. And
wow, I didn't know that.
Carried it on from there, and then I went to the junior ranks, and you probably know yourself. You make that role. The next thing you know, I'm not worried about trying to score a goal. I'm worried about trying to go take someone's head off, So, but at the end of the day, I enjoy playing too, right? I play senior still back home here with my son, which is really special to me because that's the one benefit of having a kid at a young age is, I get to play with my 21-year-old son now on my wing.
That's awesome.
It's kind of funny. Cool. He gets really mad because he's a tough kid. He played some junior and stuff. But if someone touches my baby, daddy's coming in, I'm going to freak out.
Having you as a line mate.
Yeah.
That's so cool. In the dressing room, he's giving me shit. He's like, Dad, I can take care of myself. And I'm like, no one touches my boy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, so cool.
I heard you say before the interview, going back to like when you said you were 15 fighting 20-year-olds, did you fight Link Gates when you were 14 years old?
Actually, and even my path to junior hockey, I didn't go like the average, junior player where, I went to the Bantam draft and got drafted. And I actually was playing minor hockey in Meadow Lake as a 14 or 15-year-old in the senior team, because senior hockey in Saskatchewan is really big. Like you'll fill the barns, and people come out and watch, and it's pretty good hockey. And so anyways, they would always ask me because I was, like I said, when I was younger, I was always one of the more better players. And so after our minor hockey games, the senior team would come in and say, hey, we're short a couple guys. Can you come play with us? So I'd literally play 2 back-to-back games. And I remember this is the time when I started playing kind of rougher and tougher. And some big guy, I was 15 years old, and some big guy, this is before with Link, but a previous time, some big guy kind of basically lined up beside me and was trying to bully me. And so I pushed him. I said, I'll fucking fight you. And, and he said, oh, with that big cage on. And so I took my helmet off. I said, what cage? And long story short is I beat the shit out of him at center ice in front of, 1,000 people in our home rink. So I felt like a hero. It was after the game, all the guys in senior hockey drink beer after the game and stuff. And so I'm in there getting undressed. And I still remember it was Rick Dallin, our goalie. He said, Johnny, there's someone from the other team wants to talk to you in the hallway. And first thing I thought is, oh shit, the guy I just beat up is going to beat me up now because he's mad because I fought him on the ice. And it ended up being he was a scout. He wasn't the guy I fought, but it was a guy from the team that was on the other team. And he just said, I'm a scout for the Kindersley Clippers. He said, what would you think about coming to our rookie camp? I've never seen a kid do that before. He said, that guy's like 26 and 240 pounds. And back then I was probably 170 pounds. And so long story short is that's how I made it to the junior ranks, the SJHL. And then, after a year in the SJHL is when I ended up going to PA and played with Riley. So, same thing with the pro levels. I didn't get drafted to the NHL, but I was playing senior hockey in the Quebec League one year, and the next year I'm in an NHL preseason game. So it's pretty unique way the way I made it. I wasn't drafted, didn't go the traditional way. So, but with Link, same thing. Big monster of a guy playing in the Wild Goose Hockey League, and I had it out with him as well. So
that's unbelievable.
Even run into the stories in the Quebec League. I don't know. We could be here all day making a book about
yeah,
right.
I know, right? I was gonna say you played Prince Albert with Riley and our good friend Nick Schultz, who's here with the Flyers, in the development aspect with the team. But I was looking at the stats there, and I noticed old number 11 led the team in points that year. Riley Cote, 17 Gs, 35 helpers.
I'm the other guy. Like I said about me, when I met Riley in junior, I think he was our captain, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
He was our captain, and he was a top line guy. And then you see him in the NHL, and he's fucking fighting all the heavyweights. So sorry, my leg. I was kind of like, that doesn't make sense.
Well, just like yourself, I was just trying to essentially do what you did, and just kind of find and carve out a path because I wasn't drafted either. And I realized my talent wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to make it as what I thought I was. And, your
talent, you got yourself there. So it's awesome. And I always liked enjoying watching the way you fought too, because you're kind of similar to me, and you're not scared to have an entertaining one.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know if you remember the one time in practice, because I remember you saying something to me after. Things got heated because we weren't very good that year, if you remember, right? We were kind of like bottom of the barrel, so we were frustrated. And Grant McNeil, obviously a legitimately tough guy on our team, he was my roommate at the time as well. I don't know exactly what happened, but things boiled over and we land up fighting. And you're like, wow, you did pretty good against Grant. Like you never see me fight, because I don't think I fought a whole lot that year. Yeah. But the fact he came over and said that, I still remember it.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Probably, kind of stuck in me as far as like, oh, well, Grant was establishing himself as a legitimate heavyweight that year. And I think he got drafted that year to the Florida Panthers. But, at that time, I still didn't, I thought I was better than that. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm still a player and this and that. And realizing like, little things like that kind of help, steer you in the direction somewhere down the line. Right. Because eventually you got to be honest with yourself and say, there's no chance I'm going to make it if I go about my business this way because I'm just not good enough.
Yeah. Oh, it's
But
good. Oh, we're skilled at something, my friend.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Whether
You
it
have
be
to find your lane.
Yeah.
It's got to find your lane.
It's funny. We have this conversation, not really on the podcast, but a lot of people. Riley plays men's league with me, and this is going back a few years ago when he first joined our team. And our team's pretty good for over 40 team. Like whatever. I suck, but I get to play with good. It's easy when you play with good players.
You got patience.
I have patience. But that's about it. But I'm not going to kid. Let's not kid ourselves. But anyway. One of the guy Riley was out there playing, and now he's down to one. I don't know what he was at when you played with him, but he's 185, maybe if he's lucky. He's 185 now. But he's lean, and he's fast, and he's got the long strides. He's got obviously good hands. Just like you were saying, people don't realize that you guys are like actually really good hockey players. But one of the guys on our team goes, "Nasty, Riley's like really good," and I'm like, I was like, bro, like he played in national, like, well, but he was fighting a lot. It was Ritzy. Sorry to call you out, Ritzy, but it was Ritzy. Goes, I'm like, dude, it's not the movie. They didn't push him out on the ice.
Yeah, like the goon with the
figure skates, man. Like they play, like these guys all played major junior guys in America. Like all these guys. It's when you're talking about, you were obviously a good hockey player. It's the misconception that people have.
Yeah. I always said if you give Sidney Crosby a minute a night or a minute and a half a night, he's not going to get very many points.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
you might dig in there and do something different.
Not trying to compare us, but you know what I mean. When in that minute and a half of ice time you're getting, you got one thing in your mind, and it's not putting the puck in the net. So.
Yeah, to a fault. I mean, and I can imagine the psychology shifted, at a young age for you, because you said you were, the captain and the go-to guy until maybe 15 or so. The same thing for me. And it's at some point you just like you almost like abandon the idea of playing hockey. You're so consumed, with the role. Because again, in 4 years of juniors, I think I had maybe 20 fights. So as I reflected back on my junior career, like guys like yourself, Steve McIntyre, Grant, I'm like, well, these guys own the role at the junior level, right? And you guys become the role. And I took kind of pages from all you guys' books because like that you have to become it, and almost to a fault. I was talking to Nasty about like, we had a question last week around what could you have done better. I probably could have worked on my hockey skills. You know what I mean? I was so consumed with fighting and Greco-Roman wrestling and dirty boxing, all this stuff. It's like the skills go out the door.
I say that every day. I wish I would have worked on hockey more.
Yeah.
Do it all over again.
That being said, like that what made you Nasty Mirasty was like your obviously your willingness, your fearlessness, absolute gamer. And I would say that probably the same thing for myself on some level is just, like the coach knew what they were going to get, but for longevity and the way the NHL and these the pro leagues work, you have to play a regular shift, and if you're just fighting, as now the game is so much different than it was. But that's one thing is like, man, if I could have just gone back and just like participate in the hockey portion of this a little bit more. Who knows? But it was fun while it lasted, anyways.
John, I'll call you Nasty. Nasty. He was either in the gym lifting weights, eating, or in my office. That's what he did daily in my office quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
with me. But I wanted to talk a little bit really quick about your acting career now, and it's if you're a hockey guy. It's just, to me, it's one of the funniest shows. I love it. I've watched every episode through like 3 or 4 times with my son. But talk a little bit about that. I mean, that's just got to be a ton of fun on set shooting with those guys because we're dying laughing watching it. I was saying the other day to Elvis, I wonder if they have like a blooper reel because I would think you guys would be just laughing your asses off all the time.
Oh yeah, we like I said, as a retired hockey guy, you still miss that game. And it's actually not the game you miss. It's just the camaraderie with the boys and being in the dressing room and going for dinners and staying at the hotel. So, I mean, that kind of all came back, we fly in there, and I can't say enough good things about Jared Keeso. I mean, the guy is a genius, the way he puts things together. And he did come to us and say, I want this to be the best hockey show that there's ever been. So he really lets us say our input, because I mean, when I'm doing a fight scene and they might have me do something that I would never do in a real hockey fight, and I'll tell him, and he'll say, no, you do it your way, So, like, how many uppercuts to the stomach would you throw in a hockey fight?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So, but he would really listen to the hockey guys, and even plays that we do, or the way we'd celebrate, or the way we'd hang our gear up in our stalls. He would really let us kind of dictate and tell how it goes. And so, I mean, it was really a lot of teamwork, and being a couple, most of us aren't even actors. That we're actors now, but we weren't. So he was really patient with us, and we'd go in and have fun. And I mean, if we fucked up a line, he'd let us do it again, or sometimes he'd say, no, it sounded good that way, leave it that way, because it came out more natural. So just a wonderful guy, biggest heart in the world, and really likes to give back. I mean, he's even offering to come here all the time, and I'm like, well, I'll pay you to come. And no, I'm coming to visit. And so really humble, but really good guy. And yeah, just a good group of guys. So I enjoy it. And like I said, I never thought it would get this big. Speaking about being Jim, every time I'm in an American airport, all I hear is Jim.
Yeah.
Usually I always thought I was more popular for my fighting and being nasty. So it's amazing how much it's grown, even in the States. We went to Vegas, and they had like a thing for Letterkenny there, and I couldn't believe 10,000 people were in there, and during COVID, and just the popularity that it had, and the following it gets is unbelievable. And like we mentioned earlier, this tour of the playing the alumni teams in the NHL. And I asked Jared, I said, did you ever expect this? He said, I never expected that our sponsor would be flying us around on a private jet. He says, so that just tells you right there, they know the success that we have. So, we're going to be flying to 6 or 8 NHL teams in a private jet, and being able to tour is pretty cool. Right. So obviously I think the show has been a success.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really is.
Yeah, we love to see it, and to see guys that we've known over the years to be participating in. And I love hearing the fact that he's kind of leaning on you guys to make this more, organic or original, right?
Right.
And because you guys know hockey better than he does, and the fact that he's that's leadership, right? Is like allowing you guys to kind of do it your way, and I think that's probably a good chunk of why the brand is grown and it's becoming so visible. And I love you guys are going on a tour. I think it's so good.
It's so awesome.
Good for hockey. And
TR told me that. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
It's genius that you guys be doing that, because like you said, like the footprint in the US now is significant. People are bringing it up all the time, bringing Shoresy quotes and this and that. So
even my mom's side are Americans, right? They're all from California, and even when I played pro, they didn't have a clue about hockey. And even my cousins are calling saying, hey, we're hearing about Jim all over the place, or Shoresy. And, it's just amazing how popular it is down south. I could get it around in this area, in Ontario and all that, but like down in the California, Texas, Florida, no matter where we go, people are talking about it. So it's, like I said, I think it's really succeeded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so unique. It's so Canadian. And, I think most Americans you talk to, right away they think of hockey anyways when you think of Canadians. So I think it just connects with anybody, really. So you guys did a hell of a job. Keep that up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm glad you everything you've done, in the hockey world, it gave you that opportunity.
My line's not too hard. All I have to say is, yeah.
That's great, though.
Look, Bob, look good.
I originally wasn't supposed to say it like that, right? Because the boys every night, like the guys that have bigger lines, they rehearse every night in the room. And so Jared Keeso would ask me one day, he says, oh, did you rehearse your lines? I'm like, no, it's easy. Well, how are you going to say it? As a joke, I went, yeah. And his eyes opened up really big. He's like, that's exactly how you have to say it every single time.
No shit, eh?
Yeah. I was supposed to say, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But being a smart ass, I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, that's how I every time. So it's pretty cool. Man. Make shirts that say yeah all over. And
let's ask the Jims. I love when let's ask the Jims about the sticks after the game. Yeah.
I'll get chirped once in a while on the ice when I'm playing senior. Like, oh, you're not an actor. All you say is one word, and I go, yeah.
But that's great, man.
been a good
Arnold
ride.
Schwarzenegger started off with
Yeah.
some simple
Yeah.
one-liner roles.
Yeah.
And turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a Terminator movie down the road.
Yeah, you never know.
Nasty
You never know.
Mirasty kicking some ass. I wanted to ask you about a few of your your contracts throughout your career. You've obviously played in a bunch of different leagues at different times and spaces. And then maybe more later in your career when you really establish yourself as kind of like, well, you've always been known as the tough guy, but like it seemed like at that point you're like a hired gun, right? Whether it's the Quebec League or going to Russia. I've heard some interesting stories, or even Danbury. Like, and maybe want to split up a couple of these stories, but how these conversations go. Like they're calling you up, like obviously when you're getting a call from a team, they want you to fight. But is there more dialogue about specifics? I mean, maybe the Russian story around Josh Gratton, but like, or is it just like what you're signing up for, and it's pretty obvious.
Kind of. I mean, but it depends what league I'm going to. In the AHL, I wasn't so demanding, or even Russia, because I was getting paid really good salary there. But places like Quebec, I was, I knew I was the crowd draw, so I was negotiating contracts. So like every person after 1,000 people, I got $1 a ticket, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Because wherever I traveled in Quebec, in the senior league was usually sold out, and jersey sales on that. So I got a little bit kind of cocky when I was in the Quebec League, just because I knew that they needed me more than I needed them. And but yeah, it was like wherever I played. I mean, I have respect everywhere I went. I loved Russia. You hear a lot of horror stories about Russia not being paid enough, but I mean, I'm sure you guys listen to a few of my other podcasts. In Russia, I left that place with way more than I was supposed to take. The stories there, the way that I was treated was unbelievable. Being the first year I was kind of playing for the mob there, the Russian.
Yeah.
That was in Vitesse Chekhov, where they were bringing in guys like Sugden and myself and Simon and Josh Gratton and Yablonsky, and so treated like gold everywhere I went. But yeah, there was always a bit of negotiation. Quebec, I'd even negotiate fight bonuses and stuff like that, because just got to take advantage, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
sure.
that was what I was going to ask you is like, the expectation, especially in the Quebec League, where they like for whatever amount of money you agreed to, was there a certain amount of fights expected? Like you have to fight twice, or how does that go down? Because obviously you're expected to fight, right? They're not going to pay you otherwise.
It's a weird league though, because they actually ranked us as like 1, 2s, and 3s. If you're a number 1, you're the big guns. You're number 2, you're middle, heavyweight, but usually secondary. And then the number 3 guys were like the middleweights. So usually the number 1s would always try to fight. It sounds stupid, but like usually the number 1s would always fight the number 1s. I wouldn't go and waste hurting my hand on a number 2 or 3, which kind of sounds ridiculous, but that's the way that place worked. But like, Russia was, Quebec was a wild place. Obviously it's linked to the bikers, and, I after the one legendary Steve Bosse fight I had there, I ended up getting a big bonus. I probably shouldn't say it too publicly, but, getting vehicles, getting a boat, getting a wad of cash, being paid separately from the team, having a guy come and give me an envelope full of cash and having to count it in front of the guy and make sure so I don't get the guy in trouble, right? So I've had a very wild ride. Danbury Trashers, obviously all know that was ran by the Italian mafia, and you're supposed to be making East Coast salaries, $30,000 a year, where guys are making $150,000 to $300,000 a year, living in New Fairfield, Connecticut, and getting bonuses for the stupidest things, and and then going to Russia and playing for the Russian mob. So I had a lot of experience. I've been in a lot.
Heck of a man.
Yeah,
a lot of paper bags.
Yeah, a lot of paper bags. I was going to say, didn't Rupper tell us when his agent called him and said, "Look, they want you to come play in Danbury." It was the lockout year, and he said, "Well, what do they offer?" He said, "Duffel bag full of cash."
My wife was at the time, she's my girlfriend, but my wife got a job working at the trashing company. She was, I think, when I'd drive into town and go to practice, I'd drop her off there for 3 hours while I'd go and skate and work out and go for lunch with the boys. And then I'd pick her up and she'd be done. And I think she was making more than anybody that makes in the East Coast right now.
That's great.
Sorting out tractors.
What a story that was.
On the business side, yeah.
Yeah, we had AJ on a while back, and I actually did jerseys for one of the fights in Edmonton for all the guys.
No, I was there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you met was Chris Tarian was there, right?
Yeah, Chris
Did you
was
meet
there.
Bundy? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I talked to him actually.
But I was going to ask you about in Russia. I know you've told a million stories, but I'm always fascinated by the owner. Like, I think Gratz told us, did he carry a pistol on his hip like a cowboy, or was it just
I don't think he needed a pistol. He had 10 guys surrounding him.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Samurai sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one time because he's very traditional. I to this day, I mean, I knew the owner and part of. I still don't know his name. I just called him Boss Man.
Yeah.
But they were really very traditional. So I remember one time, and I'm not a tall guy, but he was shorter than me. But I know I'm sure you're the same with yourself, Riley. You know, when I look at somebody, I could tell who not to fuck with.
Right.
And he was a guy I knew not to fuck with. So he kept telling me he loved me, and he was, so I didn't know. So I pulled him in and I put my hand on his head. Within 3 seconds, I had a knife at my throat.
No.
I guess their tradition, you're not supposed to touch somebody on their head. But he's shorter than me. So I hugged him. My hand went on his head. And within a minute, he had a knife at my throat. And I was like,
he did.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, holy shit.
No, but we would go out. We would go out there and party and we'd be shooting machine guns and we had Siberian tigers in cages and I mean,
wow.
It was just wild there. I always tell them that the village where we'd go party was like the movie Cribs, when they tour MTV tours all the celebrity houses and they're beautiful. This place should have been on Cribs. I mean, he had cabins, all like handcrafted cabins all over. He had Siberian tigers in cages that were beautiful things. They owned horses that the barn was nicer than anyone's house.
Wow.
It would go to the Russian Banya and get massages, but it was built on a river and it gets cold there, right? So there was a part of the river where they'd have jets blown in the river so it would never freeze. So then you'd go on the dock and you'd jump in the ice cold water and it'd feel like knives were stabbing you. Then you'd get out and you'd go into a tub and they'd massage you. And then you go into the Russian Banya and get the massage, like the bamboo sticks on your back. And it was just a whole different way of life there. So, but yeah, it was. And then, I'm sure you guys remember the story when I had to fly across the ocean to fight Josh Gratton for one fight. Two fights.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, that's a long one, but I'll go through it. So my wife, it was when my wife had just had my daughter, Ava. So I had flew to New York for the birth of my daughter and made sure my wife was all good. And I flew back to Russia. But about 3 or 4 weeks later, my wife was having that postpartum depression. She wasn't too bad. She was just struggling because she was also going to school at the same time. And so I'd asked the boss, I said, obviously I didn't ask him because he didn't speak English, but I was talking to my son and I was like, Sash, my wife's struggling. Is there any way that I can go home, to spend a week with my wife just to get her back on her feet and, just to kind of get her going. And I mean, they weren't very fond of it because we were going to be playing Astana, Kazakhstan, who was the other team in the KHL that actually had heavyweights. They had Josh Gratton and Chris Simon. But because we had Yablonsky, we had Kip Brennan, we had Nick Tarnowski, the boss man said, well, we'll be okay. We have Yablonsky and we have, we have guys that can fight anyways. So go ahead. And I always told him I never wanted to fight Chris Simon, right? Because I always had a thing in my heart that he's another native and an Indian tough guy. And I didn't want to, he was my role model growing up. So I kind of refused to fight him, I mean, obviously I would if I had to, but I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. So anyways, long story short is they let me fly home. So I flew all the way across the Atlantic Ocean and I landed in New York because my wife was going to school in New York. And I literally got there at around supper time, went for supper with my wife, went home and went to bed. And that night before I went to bed, I was watching the news and they had highlights on Sportsnet of a game in Russia that just happened. And that was that Yablonsky rule when Yablonsky and then remember they did that big suspension and So I go to bed, not thinking anything of it. 3 o'clock in the morning, my Skype's ringing because that's how we'd communicate back then.
Right.
So Yablonsky's calling me on Skype at 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. So you got to remember, I just landed in New York and I was only there for the evening and went to bed. And Yablonsky's like, Johnny, did you see what happened tonight? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I got 25 games and Kip got 18 games. You got to be here for Friday. So Russia is already Thursday and they're 12 or 14 hours ahead of us. So I'm like, I can't go there. I said, I just got here. My wife will kill me. And then he's like, just answer your phone. Sasha's going to call you. So about 3 minutes later, Sasha calls me. It's like 3:30 in the morning. He's like, Johnny, you have to come back. My father says, come back now and we'll make it worth your while. So here I am at 4:00 in the morning, just got to New York, and I'm on the computer trying to book flights. I can only find a flight out of Rochester, New York, because I'm in Syracuse. And it leaves at like 6 in the morning. So I have to wake my wife up and say, babe, I got to go back. So I've really only been home for 12 hours. And she's like, what? And I said, I'll be back in a couple of days. So I ended up booking a flight out of Rochester. Oh, no, I called Sasha because I'm cheap. I was making like good money there. And I was like, Sasha, I only found a first class flight and it's like 12 grand. Just get it. And I said, I'm not spending 12 grand on it. Just get it. You'll get reimbursed. So I booked this flight anyways. So anyways, I fly from Rochester. I had to get a ride at 4:00 in the morning from Syracuse to Rochester to get to the airport. And then I flew from Rochester to LaGuardia, landed in LaGuardia, and then I had to fly to Warsaw, Poland, that's like the long 12-hour flight.
Jeez.
So I land in Warsaw, Poland. You got to remember, this is Friday now. And it's like 3 p.m. in the afternoon and the game's at 7:30 and I'm in Warsaw, but I missed my connecting flight to Moscow.
Oh my God.
So I call Sasha. I'm like, Sasha, I said, I'm in Warsaw, Poland, but I said, I'm not going to make it to Moscow. I missed I landed here late. Talk to somebody, figure it out. So anyways, I ended up having to talk to the agent and ended up going to St. Petersburg in Russia. And then from St. Petersburg, I had to go to Moscow. So I landed in Moscow at literally 5:30 p.m. and the game's at 7:30. I still got to drive 2 hours.
Oh my God.
Well, I called Sasha. I said, Sasha, I'm in Moscow, but I said, I just landed. He's like, leave your luggage. We'll send someone to get it after. Just run outside. There's an entourage waiting for you. So I go outside and they got 2 cop cars, one in the front, one in the back, and then they have like an Escalade, like a vehicle. So I jump in there and the cops detour me through Moscow to get to the game. I literally get to the arena at about 7:15. And I guess there was a rule in the KHL that you had to be in warmups to play the game. So I had to run into the dressing room and get the team's already on the ice warming up. And I run into the dressing room and I get dressed as fast as I can. I don't even think I put shoulder pads on or elbow pads, and Jeremy's tying my skates for me. And because I got to get out there. So I literally get on the ice. There's about 2 minutes left in the game and I do 2 laps. And I remember I got a standing ovation. And then I come off and I faint. I'm so I've been up for 36 hours. And
oh no.
I'm puking in the garbage and I'm trying to throw water in my face. And I'm like, fuck, I've been up for 2 days. And then I get called into Alexei Zamnov, was our GM at the time. And who was our head coach? You'd know him. I can't remember. He was a tough guy too. So anyways, I get called into the coach's office and they're like, you know what we brought you here for, right? And I'm like, yep. I said, first shift, I'm fighting. And he says, okay. So sure enough, we go out on the ice. We're playing Stanley with Josh Gratton. And you got to remember, Gratton played with my team the year before.
That's right.
That's right.
So there was a good rivalry. I was a new guy in my team, and they wanted to prove that we were tough, whatever. And our owner loved Josh too. So, but anyways, first shift, I lined up beside Josh Gratton. I'm like, let's go. He's like, no, let's play a little bit. And I'm like, no, I don't want to play. Let's go. So, as we fight, I get the better of him. I remember he had 2 big black eyes, and and so we go serve the penalties in 5 minutes, and it's only a 2-fight rule in Russia. So then after serve the penalty, go back to the bench. I look at the coach again, and I'm like, next shift, get me out there because I don't want to play. I just want to go to bed.
Right.
So next shift on the ice, I think they scored or we scored. I can't remember. So I get on the ice. I go after Josh Gratton again, and same thing. Fight him. I throw him down, and then we got kicked out. We were finished. You can actually watch this fight on YouTube. Both fights. And then after the game, the boss man wants both of us to go upstairs to his his little suite up top and go have drinks. And we have pictures. And I remember I have the pictures because Josh's eyes are both swollen shut. And whatever, we got to talk. And the team had to leave that night on the road. So then I ended up staying in Moscow for like a night and a half, partying with the owner. And then I got sent all the way back to New York they gave me 2 weeks off. So I flew home. So people watch the fight on YouTube and they think, oh, what a good fight, but they don't know the whole story behind. I literally flew across the Atlantic Ocean and back. And then same thing. So it was always a wild story.
That's crazy, man. I don't know how you have the energy to do that,
the
the mental bandwidth to do that.
I got a big bag of money.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was gonna say
So it was worth it in the end.
Russian gas, like some of the
It
gas.
was probably a couple of years in the AHL that I made in that one.
Yeah, right. For 2 fights in Moscow.
Yeah, so it's
I know.
Amazing.
I know. One thing I wanted to bring up, Nasty, was I guess you just went to camp there, but you were in Norfolk with the Admirals.
Yeah, that was my first year.
Yeah.
My first year pro.
Yeah, and I remember you played the Phantoms at the skate zone here, actually where the Flyers practice, and you guys were loaded up, and so were the Phantoms. They had a tough team, but I feel like I remember Litz telling we were actually Neil Little. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a goalie with the Phantoms and Flyers, and he used to get in tilts. He's the goalie that jumped over the whole pile, years ago against Binghamton.
Right.
But anyway,
My kind of guy.
yeah,
right.
exactly. And I think you guys were shit kicking us pretty good. And Litz said after the second period, I'm going to fucking do something, boys. So just be ready, So something happens, and you're on the ice. And I don't know if you remember this, but we had this kid. His name was BJ Abel. Great kid. Just got out of college. I mean, I feel like he was at Harvard or something. I don't know.
Quick skill guy.
Yeah, but he had never been in a fight in his life. And it just worked out to where he drops his gloves and you grab him, and you were right by our bench. And he confirmed it after, but I thought, wow, you could have just probably ended his season. And you said, hey, I think you could tell when he grabbed on, probably the look in his eye for one, but you could tell that he maybe had never done this. And you said, you never done this, have you? And he was like, no. And you were just, all right, just hang on. And you kind of let him off the hook, which I thought was unbelievable.
Yeah, I've actually kind of remember that now that you say that.
Yeah. And so after the game, a couple of guys were like, what the fuck were you doing? He goes, who else was I going to, he was beside me. I didn't know what to do. So it's almost like the coaches should have never put him out there in that spot. But he was like, thank God. He goes, I just saw my life flashing before my eyes, he said, in the locker room. So I just thought it was cool that you kind of let him off the hook there.
I've always been that kind of guy, though. Like, even in the Quebec League, guys see these big bench brawls, but really it's the dum-dums going after the dum-dums. Like, I'm not going to go out there and look to sucker their first liner, right? I want to go after their type of guy, and I have that respect there. Like, I actually, in Russia, there's another story. Sergei Fedorov was one of my favorite players growing up when he played for, number 91 for the Red Wings. And I actually got told by my owner that they wanted me to jump him in Quebec, or not in Quebec, in Russia. And I said, no, I won't. Number one, it's Sergei Fedorov, and number two, kind of same thing. I'm not going to grab so
yeah.
There's always got to be that respect, and those are. I don't get me wrong. I'm the biggest goon around. I love the scraps. I love that, but I don't like to see the dirty shit, and I don't want to see anyone really get hurt. And don't get me wrong, we're going to fight. I want to knock you out, but I don't want to see you get hurt, and that's what I love about tough guys. I think no matter, I could talk to a tough guy that I never met in person, but I just have that respect, and I'll be there to help him down the line. And to this day, I have guys that reach out to me, and because I went through some mental health problems, and I had some struggles like we all do, but at the end of the day, I overcame it. And so I get a lot of guys reaching out to me asking, what do you do? So that's why I get mad when you see, you read some social media posts and they'll say, oh, that guy's probably going to be dumb when he's not 45 years old and going to have CTE. And I sometimes laugh. I say, well, it's actually the goal scorers in the NHL that made way more than me that are calling me asking for advice, So
Riley deals a lot with that as well. Yeah.
You learn from your hardships, and the mental health thing is near and dear to my heart. It sounds like as it is to you. And the one thing I remember about yourself, like you're a gamer, and you were honest as anybody. You were like, you wanted the fair fight no matter how big the guy was. Like, even if you knew you were disadvantaged, which was pretty much 98% of the time, you still you still owned that fair fight. You never tried to get the jump start. You were honest.
Yeah. I used to be the guy to take my own helmet off for you.
Yeah, I know, right? Release the mohawk.
I didn't like that. Right off because they said, why don't you leave your helmet on? I said, well, I like to be free so I can move my head. So I would always look at the guy and say, let me take my own helmet off. But yeah, no, it's like, I get what you're saying. You just want to be be fair and respectful, right? And you get a better name at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Guys
Yeah.
just say, well, he's mean, but he's also fair and honest. So.
Well, it also shows like, like you've crossed so many different tough guys. There's like the legitimate, like the obvious real tough guys, and the guys there's guys that pretend they're tough guys that, when we talk about these types of scenarios, the way you fight and the way you engage in a fight, like they're trying to get a jump start, or they're trying to catch at the end of their shift, because there's a fear there, which probably naturally for everybody there's some level of fear and anxiety, but they're almost like they're not honest enough where they just have to own the fight. They're trying to get that that edge on you, which I always kind of I just didn't love that when guys did that. And I understand it's a game and they're trying to get the upper hand, but it just showed some level of dishonesty, I felt.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's it's unfair, but then that just shows that they're nervous.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. We talk about this a lot with Riley and then some of the guests, but you don't seem to have any anxiety or anything when you go into fight. I mean, God knows how many fights on ice you've had, but did you have it the night before or the day of the game?
Oh yeah, it was.
You did.
I think that fighting was the worst job in the world to be. I loved it, but I mean, it was the most stressful because the actual fight itself was easy, to be honest.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
He lined up with Riley. We're going to have a 35, 40-minute second slugfest. One of us might go down, or it might be a good fight. And you skate away thinking, that wasn't so bad. And, the adrenaline's there. And, but what I found was the hardest was, okay, I'm fighting Steve McIntyre on Friday night. It's Wednesday or Thursday, and I know that I'm playing Steve on Friday. And Steve was a guy that I have a lot of respect for, a big, tough guy. And, there was a lot of them. And a lot of times I was always fighting those number one heavyweight guys. And, with one punch, they could put me out. So I found that most stress was leading up to the fight, the night before, the pregame naps. I remember sleeping with my wife, and I'd be sleeping and I'd be dreaming of having a fight, and I would hit my wife. Me, and I'm like, it's just, you almost had nightmares.
Sure.
And I never really had a pregame sleep because all I was doing was thinking like shit. And the thing was, I might have not, because in the Quebec League, yes, I was fighting, but in the AHL, there was a chance I might not even fight him, but there was a really good chance I would. So of course, for 2 days prior, I'm having little nightmares, kind of saying, fuck, I got to fight this guy. So that was the most stress, was the stress leading up to the fight. But once I actually got on the ice and dropped the gloves, it was like, that was awesome. That was, so
wow.
It was pre-fight was the worst.
Yeah.
That's what most say. I mean, Craig Berube is a good buddy of ours. And he said before, like, when he was coaching with the Flyers when I was there, and guys were asking him about fighting Probert and all that. He goes, yeah. He goes, try taking a pregame nap when you got Probert, and then after you fight him, you got Kosher knocking on the glass. I'm next. He's like, it's hard to take a nap, but that's why I asked you that. I can't imagine. I know Riley talks about that as well. That I couldn't even imagine going through that.
Yeah, the part leading up is incredibly challenging, right? I mean, you talk about, I can imagine your travels back to Russia, knowing you're fighting Graz twice, like, there's no
sleep.
No sleep. Oh man, I can't imagine that level of stress. But.
If I could do it all over again, I would still, though. I'd probably even go harder.
Yeah, right.
I feel like I was telling Riley, I know when you're in Syracuse there, you're obviously a very, very popular player, almost to the point where I don't know if management was mad about it, but it really reminds me. We had a guy that played here. I'm sure you've heard of Frankie the Animal Bialowas.
Yep.
But Frankie, literally, the first year of the Phantoms, I was with the Phantoms at that time, but we played in the Spectrum, and we averaged about 14,000 a game, but there was like 10 sellouts, which the place held 17,380, and it was chanting Frankie's name the whole, once people knew who he was. He actually had a billboard in Philadelphia. There was a billboard with the Legion of Doom, and then there was one down the road with Frankie with the Animal Bialowas, and it was pretty wild because I mean he was just as popular as first round draft picks that were playing with the Phantoms and stuff like that. And I read where you kind of ran into that a little bit.
Oh yeah, Syracuse was a really big following I had there, and it actually NHL teams got involved and wanted to tone it down for me because their first rounders weren't getting the attention that I was getting. So I have some emails that I actually saved when they kind of pushed me out of Syracuse the very last year. it wasn't because of my play. It was because they were mad because I was taking all the starlight away from their young draft picks. So I kind of got pushed out of Syracuse in a probably a pretty bad way. Nothing hard against Syracuse, but it was more against Anaheim Ducks. They really wanted to put me in my place, I guess. So they tried sending me to Elmira in the coast for a while. And, I said, okay, well, I had a guy that gave me a car, so I just lived in Syracuse and drove back and forth every day. They didn't like that. So then they shipped me off somewhere else. And it was a headache, but all in all, it was good. And like with the community of Syracuse, I have a really good relationship, and it was awesome. But we were talking about Frankie Bialowas. I have a funny story about Philly with Frankie Lasarda.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Where it was my first year in the American League, and that's the year we broke all the league records for the most wins. We had the most wins, and we had the most penalty minutes. Like, we were slapshot. I remember our rink sold out for warmups because we were going to do something in warmups. But anyways, we had this rule where no one would touch our red line. And Konopka was our captain, right? So Konopka, he's the agitator. And so we also had a rule that I would be the last guy that would leave the ice in warmups. So we're in Philly and we're warming, doing warmups, and then they all go off, we all go off, and Lassard won't go off the ice. So I'm on my side, and I said, I'm not going off the ice. So I took a puck, and I was trying to play the role a little bit. I didn't mean to do it, but I took a slap shot at him. I was trying to miss him by 5 feet. I missed him by like an inch.
Oh,
and I got suspension. And I didn't mean to do it. I was trying to just, intimidate him, and I didn't mean. I must have. No wonder I can't score goals. I almost just
work on that shot there, Nast.
Yeah, so I got suspended. So, but that was in Philly. And I remember it was a sold out game, and I was thinking, what am I doing?
That's great.
Did you land up playing the game then? You got suspended? Did you play?
No, I ended up playing, but it got reviewed after, and I got suspended.
Did you land up playing?
They didn't. Probably. I can't remember, but probably.
I was just saying, he probably come right after you for that.
I remember old Frankie used to do his chin strap up tight.
So tight, yeah.
His ankle's so tight.
He wouldn't change his laces. He had the worst style I've ever seen.
And if you were a trainer, you must have spent a lot of money on tape for his ankles.
My God. He did a roll of plastic, or he would not put his new skates on. I was the equipment guy, and he just, it was unbelievable. He would not put the new skates on. But I was going to tell you, his first camp, I'll never forget, we had camp, and Roger Nielsen was coaching the Flyers at the time, and we had it in Peterborough, and Frankie fought Sandy, and we're like, whoa, and I mean toe to toe, Frankie throwing his left, and so they fought. Came back out of the box because we were playing like games. Yeah, there were 4 teams, and he fought him. He did really well twice. So I remember Billy Barber was our coach, and he's like, I can't wait to get Frankie in here. So he comes to me like every game, Nasty. He would come to me with the game sheets and be like, who tough?
Yeah.
Who tough? And so he would always say, who tough? And I'm like, well, I mean, like, once we got going, you can look at the minutes and you're going to see who's tough. But he was a gamer too, Frankie. He was wild.
Frankie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he fought, hundreds of legitimately tough guys. It's probably hard to sum it up to 1 or 2, but I mean, who would you say is like the top, 3 guys that you ran into?
Shit, I have lots of respect for Big Mac. I don't know why. He's a big guy, built like me, but 6'6".
Yeah.
And he could throw both hands. He's you got those, like, I used to fight Bugard lots, and don't get me wrong, he's a killer, but he was so big and he'd throw far, so you could read every punch, right? Where guys like Bugard or McIntyre just come in and he just throw like kind of like a short guy would throw, but being 6'6", and he hit hard. So yeah. I always say Steve McIntyre is one of the toughest guys I fought. Both hands he can drop you. So. Yeah. But I mean, with that being said, I fought a lot of guys that, I don't like disrespecting anybody, because anyone that has the balls to drop the gloves has my respect.
Yeah. I read a good buddy of ours. I read, or it may have been an article or another podcast, but you were talking about when you were younger fighting Jim Vandermeer. He just looked so unassuming, but that's how Jimmy was. Jimmy was like that, but Jimmy was tough. Whereas his oldest brother, Pete Pistol, he might have been the meanest hockey player, but the greatest guy. Yeah. But on the ice, he would try to I loved when he used to do this thing. He'd call it the duck bill. He'd come into a pile, but he would have his stick turned with his blade out, and he'd start acting like he was trying to hit with his glove, but he was poking guys with his stick. And he came back and said, you put someone's eye out. He goes, that's the old duck bill, Nasty. Don't worry about it. He'd call it the duck bill.
Sounds like my buddy Kevin Kaminsky, Killer.
Yeah,
Killer.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what. Yeah, his nephew plays here in our town. I see him all the time.
Oh no, he jigs the top of his helmet really bad. So when guys punch his helmet, he cuts their hands up.
Slice their hands up.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But I saw where you did an interview. You talked about how tough Jimmy was, Jim Vandermeer.
Well, he was tough because he's quiet. I was a guy like, hey, you want to fucking go? And he just look at you and kind of like not even say anything. But then if you fight, you'd be like, holy fuck, he's tough.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of pretenders out there. I don't want to say any names because I kind of became friends with them after their careers. But there's a lot of guys too that were pretenders that I thought, right? So, but no, all in all, whoever has the balls to drop the gloves in front of that many fans and risk going down, it's, I got my respect.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Steve McIntyre. I landed up playing with him after, and I seen you fight him back in juniors as well as Bugard. And I don't think either of those two guys at the time understood how to use and leverage their size and fight, right? Because after they became like scary tough. I mean, both Bugard and McIntyre became scary tough where they literally knock your head off. So I can imagine you fought McIntyre a few more times, throughout the pro career that when he was in his prime. I mean, massive and big hands and knew how to punch.
Yeah, I remember telling Bugard in the penalty box, I'm like, fuck, man, grab me right here, string me out, and I'm not going to do anything against you. I think didn't do so good. But yeah, you're right. When a guy's 6'7" or 6'8", I mean, he should just string you out and slap me. But I remember another big guy was I didn't think he was that tough though, and I shouldn't say this, but was John Scott.
Oh yeah, right.
John Scott. Those guys are so damn big; they should be just murdering guys. I wish I had that length where I could hold somebody else.
Oh my God, he is a big man.
I know, yeah, such massive size and strength there. But it's almost like when you're that big, growing up, no one F's with you, right? Just because you're that big. But a guy like yourself that's hungrier, maybe got more spirit and fighting them, you could take on a guy like that because it's you make up for it in heart, and these guys are just they really probably don't. We've had John on our pod, and these guys just don't want to fight. They don't really want to fight. They're just fighting because they really have to just to keep their spots, as you know. But it's hard to get those big guys to have if you could inject your type of heart into one of these big guys, they'll be unstoppable. It'd be scary actually.
Maybe in my next life I'll be 6'5".
Yeah, right. You'll be a 6'5" skill guy.
Yeah, you'll be skilled though. Yeah. That's great.
Oh man. Is there anything you wanted to plug before we let you go? Charities or anything else you're doing in the community that you haven't mentioned?
Not really. No, like I said, I'm coming up running for chief here in December, and I'm looking forward to that. And just give a shout out to Shoresy. We're going to be doing our tour, as dates will be coming out. I think going to be released publicly on Friday. So if we're in the area, obviously we'll be in Philadelphia. So. Definitely, they're Nasty. You and I can figure out who the real Nasty is if I.
I'm just gonna tell you are, buddy. I'm not messing around. I'll be Nasty too. That's fine with me.
I mean, hopefully you're gonna play, right? So, but if you're in the area, let's maybe grab lunch or something, and we can hang out and talk and shoot the shit. And no, I appreciate you guys having me. It's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. Great to reconnect. Glad to see you doing well, man.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy to see how well you're doing. Honestly, with all these dark stories, and to see all the good you're doing. Keep it up, man. Keep banging the drum.
Same goes your ways, my friend.
Big thank you to our friend Jon Nasty Mirasty, the original Nasty. Fortunately, or you're just Nasty number 2.
I guess, yeah. I'm giving it to him. I'm not battling that guy. I'll be sleeping Nasty. That's what I would be doing. But what a great guy. What a warrior gamer.
Yeah, no doubt.
Fuck, man. You watch. I know Baller will have a couple clips up, but you just. That guy, toe to toe.
Yeah, just loved to eat punches.
Oh my God.
Loved it.
It was actually, I don't know what the word I want to use is, but I was not relieved, but it was kind of cool to hear him say, "Oh yeah, I was very anxious and had a hard time napping," because you watch him on the ice, like you've talked about this before, like where you got into that mode, like where you're like not a character but kind of a character.
Right.
He's just out there cruising around, "Hey, let's go." He looks so calm about it. You're like, he don't mind doing it, but he says, it wears on you mentally, which
Totally.
obviously.
I think you have to be some level of a psychopath or not even be human to be able to do any role like that,
Right.
whether it's hockey or just like fighting in general, without having nerves, right?
You have to.
You have to. I think it's just part of the
Couldn't
human
even
nature.
imagine.
But yeah, he wore it well, where he couldn't even. Obviously, most guys he would. This confidence that's that's being presented. It's not anxiety or fear. Otherwise, you're already defeated. But he just seems like he loved it so much. Even way back when I played with him in juniors, like this guy loved to fight. Like just like couldn't help himself. Just loved to fight. And but obviously the anxiety that comes along with it is normal. So
He's obviously, like, well, you played with him, but I've obviously seen him play. He is undersized.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
he's thick.
He is thick.
And strong. But, man, his arm, like, even if he fought you, your reach, like I always said, you had long arms. I think you have long arms, and it helped you when you were fighting those bigger guys, but you also weren't afraid to get your face right in there and swing. But, like, he's undersized every time he fights, basically. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And still stood in there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, well, he fought the boogeyman.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sakes.
I know.
Like
6'8". Steve McIntyre, 6'7".
Yeah, all those guys.
Think
I mean,
about
all
that.
those guys. It's insane, and the stories are great. We could have been on there, like he said, we could have been on there for hours talking about it. But great guy, man.
Yeah. Hopefully this whole Shoresy thing works out. We'll hopefully get him in the studio or maybe somewhere near or at Wells Fargo Center with a couple of those other gyms, maybe.
Yeah, the gyms. God. Baller, I don't know if you can, but if we could throw a clip up, it's so funny, Jim.
But then you're all three Jim.
Our names are Jim.
So y'all three want to be called Jim?
Yeah.
The gyms. That's the gyms.
Did a hell of a job with that.
It's awesome.
That show and that
it's
brand.
It's a great show.
So hopefully Shoresy's coming through here in the next month or so. Keep
Sudbury
you guys posted.
Blueberry Bulldogs, Riggs.
Yeah.
You better be ready.
Like the Bluey. Yeah.
So what the blue?
Maybe cut that out.
No, don't.
No?
Don't baller.
Well, you don't like the jerseys? You
Oh,
like the
yeah.
Blueys?
Oh, the blue. Yeah, I didn't know what you meant. I
Well,
didn't know
what
if
do
you
you
were
think?
talking about blue chews. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Great unis.
They do have great. I don't like the brown, but
The brown,
I
yeah.
could do without the brown, but they actually go.
I'm kind of into
You
the brown.
see them now, like it's kind of like they're unis. So
That's it.
definitely.
Nice little
definitely
brand.
love them. Yeah.
All right, now.
Bunch of beauties.
You know what time it is.
I think I do.
It's that time.
Is it Klyr Rum question time?
Oh, yeah.
Klyr Rum questions brought to you by Klyr Rum. Go to klyrrum.com/shop. Type in Nasty 2023 and get 35% off on your order. PA residents only. Get it in you. Klyr Rum.
Oh, yeah. Baller.
Leading us off today is Flyers Fan 39 over on Twitter. Flyers Fan 39 asks, what is the most exciting non-Michkov storyline for the season?
Ooh.
Well,
Good question.
Riggs, for me, I think he basically, obviously, is most attention is right there on him. But I'm interested to watch the goaltending and how this plays out. They're obviously in training camp. I'm sure Torts will, at some point here in the next couple games, will start giving full games. I know they split them at first. I'll be interested to see who's opening night starter and if he's going to roll with a guy. I don't know if there's much more than that. Maybe Jet Lachenko, seeing if he can sneak onto this team. And I mean, he looked great the other day. We talked about this earlier. It's not a full NHL squad you're playing against, but the kid's obviously a good player, first-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. And he's got some wheels.
Yeah, that would be quite the headline if he cracked the lineup and stuck around all year long. I'm not sure how realistic that is, even as high end as he is, and obviously will be in the future, because that could be a nice little piece early too. You know, in this early stage or earlier stage of the development process. But yeah, I'd like to see the goaltending tandem shake out. Obviously, I think the number one could still be up for grabs.
Right.
I mean, it kind of always is, I think. At least in theory, maybe not on paper the way they have it slotted out, but one guy outperforms the other, things change pretty quickly. So Jamie Drysdale staying healthy and seeing his mobility and he moves so well
he does.
On the blue line, just to see him flourish a little bit more. Other than that, anything else come to mind?
That's basically it. But I mean, obviously Matt Vase,
he's the headliner,
the talk of the league. Everyone's wants to see him just like we do. So it's going to be fun.
Yep. Good question.
Anthony Giampaolo over on Twitter asks, what's your thoughts on Amazon's upcoming NHL coverage and the new series?
I love it.
Can't wait to see it. I do too. I saw a commercial for it. It looked really cool.
It looked really good.
I think it helps anytime, especially for the National Hockey League. Obviously, the money with TV is not like the other sports, the major sports. But I think it's cool, and fans get to maybe know the players a little bit better and see things, that you don't normally get to see. I think it's great. I love stuff like that.
100%, and you're getting some big time players, that they'd be following around. So you get an inside scoop on the NHL, but also to be following around some superstars. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think
they do a hell of a job with these types of documentaries. So
they do. I still, when we did the HBO special way back with Briz and all that.
I don't know. Right now, I'm very into the universe. Like solar system is so humongous big, right?
But that was so much fun. Not like it was. Actually, you kind of forget they're there, because they're there every day for a few weeks. But it was cool to go back and watch it. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, man. I still, like, once in a while, if I see a clip, I watch it. I was like, oh, that was such good times and memories. But I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too. And I just always love how the end product seems so different than what you kind of originally think it's going to be, right? I mean, you talk about the HBO special. It's like you're in it, but you don't know how they're going to present it. And then you see it, and it's like, wow.
Yes.
Like, you can see how they kind of lay out the structure of some of these documentaries and these series. But I'm always excited to see how they paint the picture and how they tell the story and how the guys are portrayed, right? Because the average fan just sees the product on the ice as, almost like, say, superhuman, or then all of a sudden you show it from a different perspective and you highlight
the real people.
The real humans there. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's great.
Me too. Great question.
Antilaxo over on Twitter wants to know, who is your favorite Finnish-born players?
Oh, there's a few of them. I mean, played with a few. Kimmo, Niittymaki, Ville, yeah, of course, Ville. How can you forget Ville? Growing up watching Teemu Selanne, original Winnipeg Jets.
That's well,
not that original Winnipeg Jet, but he obviously started with the Jets and crushed some records there. But he was the first Finn that I really remember.
He was pretty good.
He was pretty damn good.
Good.
But there's probably some others that I'm forgetting here. I mean, you probably had a few more.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up three that I thought of right away. It was Kimmo, obviously Kimmo Timonen, great guy, funny. They're all. I think every Finn I've ever come across and had as a player was great. Ville Leno, one of my our good buddies, so funny. Niittymaki and Tyros, what a guy. Yeah, so those guys are come to my mind right away. I know I'm leaving some guys out, but those three that I mentioned were I always think about them. That's basically what I'm saying.
Lon Levin.
Double L?
Over on Facebook, Double L wants to know, Derek, what's the worst thing you ever saw in a locker room that made you say, yeah, I ain't touching that?
How about the worst thing you smelled?
Fridge's gear. Todd Fedor's gear is the worst thing I smelled.
A little dead salmon smell.
The worst thing where I wouldn't touch it. Well, I always wear gloves, for one. But you know what was gross, Riggs? I don't think you were ever guilty of it. When guys go to spit and they miss the can and they hit the side of it or something, that used to just... I just wanted to vomit. I don't know why, because I'd see terrible injuries, big cuts, nothing bothered me. Someone spitting a loogie
just
on the side of the wall or on the... Not that they meant to, but to miss the can, like that kind of shit I couldn't stand. But I did wear gloves, and if that would happen, I'd go throw the can in the shower because I wasn't touching it. No. I wasn't wiping it. I let the water take it off. But that was probably it, besides Todd Fedorik's stinky gear that I had to touch, but I wore gloves.
Yeah. You ever notice any random things floating in the hot tub?
Well, there was just one day I came in, and we won't mention names, but, kids, if you're listening, tune out. I'm just going to tell it. I go to get in the hot tub, and I take a couple steps down, and I see something floating. And this isn't Caddyshack. This wasn't wasn't a baby Ruth in the pool. It could have been a baby eventually, but it was floating. Without getting too graphic, and I quickly backed up, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what is this? So I went and got another guy that worked with me
to confirm.
I'm like, is this what I think this is? And they were like, oh, my God. So needless to say, we had the pool drained, so the boys couldn't get in it that morning. We had to get it drained, and someone was just enjoying something, and...
Just let her butt?
There it was.
Oh, my gosh.
It was disgusting, but I obviously did not touch that.
All kinds of wrong with that.
A lot of wrong.
Oh, man.
How do you go about
that?
Go about not getting caught doing that, for one?
We have the balls to do that.
Well, I know exactly who did it, but we won't say. We all know. But that was disgusting.
Yeah, that's all kinds of wrong.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right, well.
I had nightmares about that.
That was the question.
I was swimming in it. I was almost swimming in it.
You were. So wrong.
There you go, baller.
Last one is from Mark Sorensen over on Facebook. What are the best fights you have seen in the preseason?
All right, well, I've watched a few of the fights just on hockeyfights.com.
Yeah.
I've been watching the games, but there's been a lot of them just like short, kind of like in the moment type of fights in preseason. I did watch a fight with Liam O'Brien, Spicy Tuna there, fighting a kid out of LA, Jeff Mallet.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a pretty spirited fight. You got, Spicy Tuna with his hair flowing. You got the big orange beard. I thought it was a pretty good, quick, spirited bout. That one comes to mind, and then the only other one that comes to mind, it wasn't even really a fight, but this young kid taking on
Revo?
Ryan Reeves. Yeah, exactly. I forget what his first name is, last name Sabrango, Ottawa. Big long square off, and I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, this kid's gonna get killed, and it landed up being 1 second, one punch. I'm not even sure if it landed necessarily. I think Ryan Reeves is just so strong and overpowering that the kid just fell right over, but. Props to him for actually
trying.
Stepping in there and
exactly.
trying to make a name for
Maybe
himself.
Maybe it was a smart move on his part by falling, but
convenient fall, but really obviously not a great fight. But showing young kids with balls trying to make a name for themselves, and nice to see Revo, doing what he does best, and sticking up for the boys, doing his thing, and just probably remains the champ, right? I mean, who's going to beat him right now?
So.
I don't see a whole lot of...
I will throw in there, it was not much of a fight, but just the spiritedness of it was Tanev and buddy Mark Friedman.
Oh, yeah.
They both it didn't last. They fell, but they both swung hard. They were trying to knock each other out, but they didn't last long, unfortunately. But go to hockeyfights.com daily to watch these.
Right, hockeyfights.com. Got all the goods.
Great question.
Mm-hmm. All right, Nas, that's a wrap.
It's a wrap, buddy.
173 in the books.
Nasty Mirasty.
Oh, yeah.
2 nasties at one time. Crazy. Did you feel intimidated?
I'm going to start calling you number 2.
Fuck you.
No, I didn't feel intimidated. Just to see old Nasty.
I'm having 2 nasties.
Oh, yeah, I felt real intimidated.
I thought you did. You seemed a little standoffish over there. Yes. You're sit-offish in your chair.
Just getting accustomed to the extra nasty.
I know.
But appreciate him hopping on.
Yeah.
Great episode. 173 in the books. Till next week for 174. Be sure to hit us up on YouTube, Instagram, ask us some questions, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yes.
Until then, stay safe, knuckleheads.
Yep.